Couple days ago, Christopher Nolan released his latest film, Oppenheimer. So here are my thoughts on it. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I talk about a bunch of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share what you thought of Oppenheimer. Over on my channel, I have more content like this. Check those out once this video is over. Click that like button and be sure to subscribe because it really does help a lot. And with that said, let's just get started into the review talking about the good. And let's just cut straight to the chase with this one. This is another great Christopher Nolan film. Like I said, Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite directors of all time, and so naturally, at the beginning of the year, this was one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and I would say Christopher Nolan did exactly what I wanted him to do with this film, but he also managed to do much more than just that. And so, what I was expecting going into this movie was this fascinating story about the making of the nuclear bomb. And it absolutely is that. When it's about that, you care about what's happening, you're interested in the story, and you're entertained by it, certainly. But it's also a compelling character study, character journey for Oppenheimer. And this is a movie where they're basically trying to get a bomb made before the Nazis. And they're trying to get this piece of technology made to end World War II to stop the Nazis. And that's basically what this movie is. And so, therefore, it's already interesting because this is one of the more important events in American human history. And Oppenheimer himself is a character that you care about what's happening to him. He's not all treated like he's supposed to be this likable, charming guy. He's not that. But it's a movie where he because of his brilliance is able to make it the nuclear bomb, and what the toll that takes on him. The technology, this thing that he released upon the world. And it's more about like him and how he responds to what he did with the Manhattan Project and things like that. And so, even as an interesting story about the making of the nuclear bomb, it's also a character story about Oppenheimer. All of the Christopher Nolan films have all these complex, layered stories, and this movie has all the complexity and layered scenes and sequences and story that you want from a Nolan film. And it's just nice to see that. Like, by the way, this is the first Nolan film I saw in the theater. I didn't get into Nolan until like the COVID era, and so this is the first Nolan film I saw in the theater, and it just has more the complexity that Nolan's films have always had. But what I really thought that he did very well with this movie is that he tackled this story about this piece of technology that is released out onto the world. That, like I said, it's a story about them trying to create a bomb before the other countries, the Nazis, do. And so it tackles that side of the story. And so, therefore, you want Oppenheimer and his team to succeed. But when they do succeed, of course, you can't really celebrate with them because of the way the technology is being used, as they are pretty much responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths because of the atomic bomb. And that's just a very interesting aspect of the film where, although they end up being victorious at points in time in the film, it's not very satisfying. And another thing to talk about here is that this is a movie about the atomic bomb, and so it has explosions, and this movie has one of the more realistic depictions of explosions. And what I mean by that is that on the 4th of July, you watch fireworks, and you see the fireworks before you actually hear them. And this is a film that actually does that. So Like, whenever explosions happen, sometimes it will just explode and you don't hear anything at first, and the sound is a bit delayed. And I thought that was really cool what they did with that, because it's a more realistic depiction of what explosions are. There's a scene in this movie where they drop the atomic bomb, and that is a pretty great sequence there. The way it handles its light and sound usage, and so it contains a very realistic way of bombs exploding. But it also contains tension throughout the entirety of its runtime in different ways than the big action superhero blockbusters do. So there will be sequences in this movie where they are about to test out the atomic bomb, and you want to see what happens when that does happen. And it just creates this sort of tension in the atmosphere. Unlike superheroes punching other people in the face, no, it's tension through these people just trying to test something out. And so that's what I really enjoyed and appreciated about this movie. And while this is a movie that has big gigantic explosions, there's not a lot of that in there. It's a much more dialogue-based film story that lasts 3 hours of its runtime. But through all its dialogue, through all the characters, it still manages to be interesting and very compelling. Of course, always with Christopher Nolan films, there's always an amazing cast involved in the film, and this is a film that just has a stacked cast. Of course, Cillian Murphy in the titular role, but you also get people like Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr. even, that just, of course, give out amazing performances like they always do. This is a film that has such a stacked cast of actors that there will be this A-lister that we all know, and then they're only in a couple minutes of the movie. They're only in this one sequence where they actually talk. Like, actors like Rami Malek, he's not all that much in the movie. He's really only in like a couple scenes, but he still managed to be good in those scenes. And so there's fantastic performances with a stacked list of actors, a stacked list of names that we all know. And finally, what to talk about here is that it makes the audience think about the dangers of the world in which we live in. It depicts some real life events, but it never actually stops for the spectacle. It treats it with a sense of dread. Once the atomic bomb is released out to the world, you feel this sense of like danger, and that's just something that is really, really cool about this movie. And by the time you get to the end, it makes the audience think about what they see, about the world we live in, because of the Manhattan Project, the events of this movie. And so, in general, this is just a movie that I really enjoyed. And Christopher Nolan, he has done it once again to make a fantastic film. From there, let's move on to the bad. I'm going to keep this section pretty brief because I thoroughly enjoyed what they did with this movie. But I will say, I felt that it slowed down a bit in the last 45 minutes of it, say. Because there was a point in time in the movie where I thought, oh, this is where it's going to end. And then there ends up being like 45, 50 minutes left of the film. And so maybe that didn't sit right with me, because in the last 45 minutes of the film, they focus a lot on these like hearings, which are very important and interesting to the film. But I didn't find these hearings as interesting as the Manhattan Project, the events that take place in the other sections of the movie. But that doesn't change the fact that I really, really did enjoy this film, and I thought Christopher Nolan just did a great job with it. Overall, my final score is an A. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. If you're a big Christopher Nolan fan, you're definitely gonna like this movie, you definitely go check it out. But if you're also just interested in the movie about the making of the atomic bomb, go check it out as well. I highly recommend it. Okay, and yeah, pretty much there you have it. Those are my thoughts on Oppenheimer. Down below in the comment section, share what you thought of Oppenheimer. Click that like button. Be sure to subscribe. It really does help a lot. Check out my other videos right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one.